Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take a stack of your sources. It could be articles, research notes, whatever you've got, and we really dig in, extract the key nuggets, the important stuff to get you properly informed. Today, we're looking at what really feels like a massive strategic gamble, almost like a high-stakes poker game happening in Formula One, specifically Aston Martin. They're making this incredibly bold play. We've been digging through insights from a detailed video and an interview over on F1 blogs. It features some big names, Andy Cowell, Aston Martin's exec director, and even, interestingly, a take from Mercedes' Toto Wolff. So our mission today, let's unpack this pretty daring strategy, try to understand the thinking, maybe the genius behind it, and really get a grip on the huge stakes involved here. This isn't just about, one race weekend. It feels more like a blueprint for the next few years.
Okay.
So let's dive in.
Absolutely. And looking at that F1 blogs material, what jumps out is how clear, how intentional this decision seems. And it's almost audacious, really. They're very consciously choosing to, maybe sacrifice some immediate results.
For a much bigger, hopefully much more significant reward down the line. It's a textbook case of long-term strategic thinking.
It's a massive risk.
Oh, huge risk, especially in F1, which is it's arguably the most competitive environment out there.
Okay, so let's get straight to it. The core revelation, because it is pretty surprising when you first hear it. Andy Cowell, who, let's be honest, doesn't usually mince his words.
No, he doesn't.
He said something quite eye-opening about Aston Martin's current car, the 2025 one. What was that admission? What really sets the scene here?
Well, what's really fascinating is just how blunt Cowell was. He basically confessed that, yes, Aston Martin could be doing better right now, this season. He explicitly says, and this is from that F1 blogs interview, he says, if from March 1st, Adrian Newey had put his maximum effort into improving the AMR 25, I am absolutely sure that today we would be higher on the grid.
Wow. Okay.
But then, and this is the absolute key part, he says, but we are not doing it.
Right.
And that one statement just underpins their whole strategy. It's monumental.
Holding Adrian Newey back. I mean, that sounds almost like heresy in Formula One.
It does, doesn't it?
Every team fights tooth and nail for every thousandth of a second. Performance is everything. So what on earth could be the logic for not pushing the AMR 25 as hard as possible right now? Why deliberately hold back?
It all circles back to 2026. The huge change in technical regulations that's coming. The analysis we looked at from F1 blogs, it highlights that Newey was specifically told, essentially, don't touch much of the AMR 25's design.
Right, hands off the current car.
Pretty much. And not just design, but ongoing development too. And the reason, to avoid losing time on what they see as the real prize, his focus, his entire bandwidth is being directed toward the next generation of cars, the 2026 car and beyond.
Okay.
Cowell confirms this directly. He says, we are focusing on 2026 and the following years because the investment will be rewarded in more seasons and more events.
So it's a pure long game play.
Absolutely. Total prioritization of future championships over, maybe scraping a few extra points this year, maybe grabbing an occasional podium.
They're sacrificing today for tomorrow.
That's exactly it. A calculated sacrifice, hoping for dominance later on.
That just sounds like such a massive gamble, especially in F1 where, performance now dictates so much. Sponsorship, team morale, fan interest.
It does.
So from a business angle, how does this long game stack up? Especially now we have the budget cap limiting what everyone can spend. Doesn't this risk, putting people off who want results immediately?
That's a really good question, and it touches on how F1 is changing as a business, too. The F1 blogs analysis really hammers this point home. Under the budget cap, every single dollar, every pound, every euro spent becomes incredibly important, massively significant.
Right. Every decision counts more.
Exactly. When your resources are finite, which they are for every team now, you have to make these really tough strategic calls. Where do you invest? Do you put your limited budget into tweaking the current car for maybe one better result, a single podium? Or do you invest that money, perhaps even more significantly, into next year's car?
Aiming for the championship.
Aiming for something much, much bigger, exactly. Like a genuine title fight over several seasons, not just a flash in the pan. And the logic, as it's laid out in the F1 blogs material, seems pretty clear from their perspective. More success in 2026 and the years after. Well, obviously that means better results on track, but it also means you can attract bigger, better sponsors.
More money coming in.
Which brings in substantially more revenue. And that creates this positive feedback loop, right? More success, more money, more investment, potentially more success.
A virtuous cycle.
Precisely. So From that purely economic view, betting big on 2026, it's described in the source as a totally logical investment.
Hmm.
It's about maximizing that long-term return in a resource-constrained world, like choosing to build a brand new factory versus just tinkering with the old production line for a tiny gain this quarter.
Okay, yeah, I could see the financial logic there, long-term thinking. But a strategy this ambitious, this focus on the future, it needs a really solid foundation, doesn't it?
What does the F1 blog's analysis say about Aston Martin's core strengths? They talk about these 4 pillars for F1 success. Do they actually have the groundwork in place for this kind of long haul?
Yeah, the deep dive into that F1 blogs video, it makes a pretty strong case, actually. It lays out these 4 essential pillars that really any top F1 team needs. First one, no surprise, money.
Of 4.
Aston Martin, under Lawrence Stroll, they've clearly invested huge sums, especially in that new factory. The source material claims it's surely the best in Formula One today.
That's a big claim.
It is. But without that kind of money up front, none of the rest is possible. It's the foundation. Second pillar, tied closely to the first, top-level facilities. That's the factory again. It's not just a building. It's a tool, state-of-the-art, a statement.
Right.
Third, qualified personnel. You need the brains. And they seem to have a strong team. Andy Cowell leading it, obviously. Plus key recent hires like Newey, Enrico Cardile, Shields. The analysis does mention Dan Fallows isn't there anymore, which is interesting. But the overall influx of top talent is undeniable. You need the best people to use the best facilities.
Makes sense. And the 4th pillar.
Drivers, naturally. The material says they have at least one top-level driver, Fernando Alonso. 2-time champ, still performing incredibly well.
He definitely is.
Lance Stroll is mentioned too, of course. The source is a bit candid about him, saying he's not very much to my liking, but acknowledges his position.
As the boss's son?
Yeah, which, it's part of the package, I suppose. Keeps the investment flowing for Newey, perhaps.
Okay, so they seem to have the core ingredients. The cash, the factory, the key technical people, and a superstar driver. That definitely positions them well for a long-term strategy. But here's where it gets really, really interesting for me. Almost paradoxical. If Newey is so focused just on 2026, what specific advantage does that give them? Especially when you combine it with their current performance, which, let's face it, isn't right at the very front.
Right. This is such a critical point. And it kind of highlights the cleverness, maybe, of the strategy because they aren't currently fighting for the championship title, because their standing in the constructors is a bit lower.
You get a handicap.
Effectively, yes. They get significantly more permitted hours in the wind tunnel and using CFD computational fluid dynamics.
Ah, the aerodynamic testing restrictions.
Exactly. It's designed to help teams further back catch up. So Aston Martin gets more time than their main rivals. Now, just picture this for a second. You take Adrian Newey, the great genius of aerodynamics, arguably the best designer ever. You give him a brand new cutting-edge wind tunnel and CFD setup in this amazing new factory, and then you give him more hours to use those tools than Mercedes, Ferrari, or Red Bull get.
That sounds potentially explosive.
Doesn't it? The F1 blog's analysis poses it almost like a challenge, like what will happen. It acknowledges we don't know for sure, but there's this real sense of anticipation. What can he do with that advantage?
It's leveraging a rule designed to help slower teams, but leveraging it with potentially the best designer.
Precisely. It's a unique opportunity.
And it's not just wishful thinking inside Aston Martin, or just this analysis we're looking at, is it? Their rivals are actually noticing this, taking them seriously long term.
Oh, absolutely. That's a key piece of validation. The material confirms Toto Wolff, Mr. Mercedes himself, hardly someone easily impressed.
No.
He views Aston Martin as one of the threats for Mercedes in the years ahead.
That's significant.
Hugely significant. When a major competitor like Toto Wolff openly flags you as a future threat, you know your strategy is being taken seriously. It speaks volumes.
Okay, so strategy, money, facilities, Newey, plus extra time. It's compelling. But the F1 blogs piece also talks about a specific mentality, something Andy Cowell is driving. It sounds pretty intense, almost relentless. What does that tell us about the culture they're trying to build there? How does that feed this big vision?
Yeah, he calls it a shark mentality, which is quite a vivid phrase.
It is.
He explains that, look, after a bad race or a poor qualifying, yeah, they're unhappy. Of course they are. But the key thing is, come Monday morning, they're not sulking. They are straight into the task list, analyzing, fixing, moving forward immediately.
No time wasted.
Exactly. And he has this quote, which I think is really telling about their whole ethos. He says, every day we get up, we aspire to do a lot, and we go to bed having achieved most of it, but rarely everything. And then he adds, if you achieve everything you set out to do, it was probably a somewhat cowardly plan.
Wow. So aim so high, you're almost guaranteed to fall slightly short.
That seems to be the idea. They set deliberately ambitious goals. They strive for perfection, but more as an ambition, a direction, not necessarily a guaranteed endpoint they expect to hit every single day.
It's the pursuit that matters.
Yes, it's about constantly pushing boundaries, aiming so high that even if you don't hit everything, the progress you make is still huge. And apparently this really clicks with Lawrence Stroll's own ambitions. It drives the whole factory culture. It's this engine of, well, relentless, ambitious effort, focused on that big, perhaps seemingly impossible ultimate goal.
Okay, so putting it all together, on paper, Aston Martin looks like they're ticking all the boxes. Money, facilities, talent, a focused strategy, the Newey ace card with extra playtime, this shark culture. But F1 is never straightforward, is it? Never. With all this foresight, all this potential, is 2026 basically a done deal for them? Or are there still big question marks, big challenges ahead?
That really is the crucial question, isn't it? And despite all these positives, all this strength on paper, the F1 blog's analysis definitely highlights some major hurdles still to overcome.
Such as?
Well, one huge one is the Honda partnership for 2026. Becoming a factory team with Honda, that's a massive integration task. It's not just plugging in a new engine. They have to design the chassis and engine integration much more closely. That means starting a lot of fundamental things from scratch.
Like the rear suspension.
Exactly. The source specifically mentions the rear suspension. And designing something that complex, that critical, from a completely blank sheet that's described as very difficult in Formula One. It's a massive technical challenge for any team, even with someone like Newey overseeing it.
Okay, that's a big one. What else?
Well, there's Honda itself. Yes, they produced, quote, a brutal engine for Red Bull, helped Max win titles, no question about their capability at the top level.
Right.
But the analysis also notes, historically, Honda hasn't always been the absolute fastest possible when it comes to the speed of development, maybe compared to Mercedes or Ferrari historically.
So adapting quickly could be a variable.
It could be, especially with brand new engine regulations coming in for 2026. That introduces an element of unpredictability.
And then there's the Alonso factor.
Yes, Fernando Alonso. Incredible driver, still performing at an amazing level, but he's not getting any younger.
Time waits for no one, even him.
Exactly. And his contract, according to reports, runs out at the end of 2026, right when this new era is just getting started.
So the clock is ticking.
The huge question is, can Aston Martin deliver a winning car, a championship contending car, within that time frame? While Alonso is still there and still at his peak, the analysis brings up the cautionary tale of Toyota's past F1 effort.
Ah, yes. Huge budget. Amazing facility.
But ultimately no championships. They arguably lacked that key engineering genius, that Newey figure to pull it all together.
But Aston Martin does have Newey.
They do. They have Newey, they have the money, the facilities, the pillars seem to be in place. The potential is absolutely clear. But turning potential into actual consistent championship-winning success, especially with Alonso's timeline, it's still far from guaranteed. Many things need to go right.
It really is a high-stakes poker game then. Betting the house on 2026, leveraging Newey's genius, pushing everything towards that future goal.
It is. Which brings us to a final thought, perhaps for you listening. When you consider just how long-term this Aston Martin gamble is, and how unpredictable Formula One can be, regulations change, rivals improve unexpectedly, what do you think might be the biggest unforeseen consequence? Or maybe an unexpected factor we haven't even considered that could ultimately make or break this whole ambitious strategy come 2026? Something completely out of left field.
That's definitely something to chew on, a deep dive for you to mull over. We hope you picked up some surprising insights and maybe some new perspectives from our look at Aston Martin's incredibly bold strategy, all drawn from that material on F1 blogs. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.